So welcome, everyone. My name is Anna Myers, and I'm the Executive Director of the Whistleblowing International Network. I'm delighted that we are launching this report that focuses on the work being done by civil society organizations around the world to support and protect public interest whistleblowers. We are very aware that there are not enough specialized advisors or support out there for whistleblowers, and this was one of the drivers for establishing WIN in the first place, to highlight the existence of a small but growing whistleblower protection community and to start to really share hard-won expertise, technical, legal, and practical skills to build up solidarity and capacity around the world for this important work. I'll quickly run through the agenda before introducing our first speaker. We have an hour, and we will start with Juliette Descoster, and co-author of the report, who will talk a bit about it, and then we'll move to a discussion with our three speakers. We have Claire Launay from Colombia, Mialisoa Randriamampianina from Madagascar, and Oksana Nesterenko from Ukraine. So as I mentioned before, please do not hesitate to put your comments and questions in the chat. I do want to acknowledge the valuable support we got from the very start of this research project from Professor Kate Kenny and Dr. Tammy Milan at the University of Galway. I believe very, very sincerely that strong research in this field is vital for us as a community so that we continually critically analyze what works and what doesn't, so we can come up with better strategies and more effective strategies to support whistleblowers in an ever-changing world. But I also want to express my very sincere gratitude to the former Chief Justice of South Africa, Raymond Zondo, who very generously agreed to write the foreword to the report. His long experience as a lawyer and a judge in South Africa, and then as head of the Judicial Committee of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption, and fraud in South Africa's public sector, which lasted 4 years and resulted in a number of recommendations regarding the protection of whistleblowers. He is a powerful voice in the field, reinforcing how people acting in the public interest and in the public good reinforces the rule of law and democratic accountability. So without any further ado, it's great to see you all here. I want to introduce Juliette Descoster, who serves as a senior advisor at WIN, focusing on development, membership support, and ad hoc projects. I mean, I wouldn't really call this an ad hoc project. It was a long labor, and she's done incredible work on this report. She has 20 years of experience in philanthropy, where she oversaw programs related to the regulation of multinationals, civic space, climate justice, and whistleblower protection. And she's also chair of Sherpa, an organization based in France set up to fight economic crimes and defend victims of globalization. So I'm delighted to hand it over to Juliette to start our session here.
Thank you very much, Anna, and hello to all of you. Yes, we are really happy to launch this report. It was a great adventure. I won't take too much of our time, as the idea is to listen to our three speakers, but to introduce the report, I want to say some words about its origins and the process we followed, as well as a little bit about the content of the report. So at WIN, we noticed there were no in-depth global studies on the whistleblowing work of civil society organizations, who they are, their vision, how they are organized, what they are doing. And as an international network gathering 38 organizations working in the field, we thought it was up to us to launch a survey, which was quite a long survey, as it had 64 questions. And the idea was to have an overview of today's organization working on the field, in the field. So we sent it to 75 organizations, and we received 50 responses, which means 67% response rate. And just over half of these, a bit more, are part of WIN Network, and the rest were known to WIN either via its membership or by having been in contact in other ways. We had quite a broad geographical representation. 46% of respondents came from Europe, 20% from Africa, 10% from Latin America, 6% from North America, but also organization from and person from Oceania, Asia, and there were some international and regional organizations. And if I can be very quick about that, but mostly all those organizations are quite small organizations, except one, two, as 68% have fewer than 10 staff. So it's quite small. So, but before entering the content itself, I want also to express again our gratitude in the name of WIN. Anna has started, but I want to say a big thank to all the respondents. Maybe you are some are here today, but also for those who can't be here. I also want to thank the two researchers Anna mentioned from the University of Galway, who really helped us a lot to deal with all the information we received. I don't know if Tammy, Milan, or Kate Kenny are here already, but thank you so much to you. And if they are here, it would be great to hear a few comments from you after the speakers, but I haven't really seen if they are here. And like Hannah, I think it's important. I'm also very grateful to the former Chief Justice of South Africa for his important contribution for the report. So regarding the responses, it was really interesting to see a common basis across borders regarding especially the definition and purpose of whistleblowing, but also the diversity of activities, achievements, and perspectives of those working in the field. We, for example, analyze the language they used when it is related to whistleblowing in the different countries, and the way the language is at the same time a reflection of the politics and the laws in the different countries, as it is also an incentive to change policies and the cultural acceptance of the role of whistleblowing in society. I think the example in Spanish of the term alertador is a good example of that. Another interesting part for me of the report focused on the challenges and the numerous barriers and challenges for the whistleblower, but also for the organization working on whistleblowing today, which is at the political level, cultural level, legal level, institutional or organizational level. The survey highlights 7 consistent barriers, and I'm not going to mention all, but just the majority mention the severe reprisals, job loss, lawsuits, physical threats for whistleblowers, the weak or the poorly implemented laws, with often narrow definitions, inconsistent standards, but also at the level of the cultural stigma. And yeah, some elements, macro issue like hostile political environments, for example, the government targeting CSOs. Well, I'm not listing everything, but maybe one which was not so much mentioned, it has been mentioned, it's the question of the secrecy regimes as well, like national security and corporate confidentiality used to silence disclosure of wrongdoing. In terms of organizational challenges, so more for the organization, of course, you won't be surprised to hear that the question of funding is at the top of the list. But other top challenges were identified and linked to the difficulty to retain staff, the question of legal intimidation and slaps targeted to silence both whistleblowers and those who are supporting them, and this high risk of casework with long-running cases, with complex cross-border threats. Well, all that with also states others face state hostility, surveillance, and well. So we will have a discussion about some of these issues with our speakers. But what is also important to notice in the report is the clear affirmation of the need of collaboration to strengthen the work on the ground. And in a moment where authoritarianism is growing, where democratic and independent voices are shut down, where the situation in lots of countries is getting worse, the need to work together, to fight together, to support each other is really essential to harness the power of whistleblowing and bring about change. And that report is also here to rebuild and reinforce this collaboration and work together. Yeah, so thank you. Finish.
Great. Thank you so much, Juliette. And I think when you get into the weeds, of course, we're always talking about the challenges, and that was very much what the questionnaire was looking at, how people are operating and the organizations themselves. But I do wish to put a note of positivity that whistleblowers continue to amaze us, raise issues, work with these organizations, and these organizations will work with governments, with journalists, with others to get the disclosures to the right place. And the impact is amazing. And I think one of the reasons we also wanted to do this report was to say behind the scenes, because you will often get the journalists taking, quite rightly, they write the stories, they're authors of the stories. The whistleblowers are not always named, but when they are, they can be much better protected sometimes by being identified. The organizations behind this work are rarely part of that, rarely mentioned. Are the ones that are there, are doing the work, will have been with whistleblowers for 2 or 3 years before it's a story, maybe with that whistleblower for 2 years after it was a public story, and somehow they're not part of the picture and they keep being sort of lost behind it. So that's another reason why WIN was important, to really acknowledge this whistleblower protection community around the world, to remind people we need the infrastructure behind the whistleblowers. So I'm going to talk to 3 of experts who are represent organizations that filled in the survey as well. And I will start by introducing them. So Claire Launay Gama, as I mentioned, is with TI Transparencia por Colombia, Bogota, which is the Colombian chapter of Transparency International. And she's a program director there, and a research fellow at the Political Observatory of Latin America and the Caribbean at Sciences Po in Paris. She has worked with various NGOs in France, Africa, and Colombia, as well as with French and Colombian universities and research centers. So she has a lot of expertise in the area of governance, decentralization, the fight against corruption, elections, and citizen participation in public action. And I love that phrase, because that is exactly what whistleblowers are, even if they're individuals working in organizations, raising organizational information, wrongdoing that they are participating in the public good. And so I think it's great to have her here. Miali for short, but I'm going to try it one more time. Mialisoa Randriamampianina. That was so close, but Miali is the executive director of Transparency International Initiative Madagascar, where she leads initiatives focused on governance, transparency, civic participation, and anti-corruption advocacy. Her core areas of expertise, and I think in a lot of different jurisdictions, you will see this link between public access to information and whistleblower protection. So she is also does a lot of work on access to public information, electoral integrity, and the protection of whistleblowers, which she considers fundamental to strengthening democratic governance. And also in citizen trust in public institutions in Madagascar. And she does have a background in investigative journalism as well. So these are incredibly accomplished individuals. It's hard to put it all in a short introduction. Dr. Oksana Nesterenko is a legal scholar, public policy analyst, and anti-corruption activist. She is Executive Director of the Anti-Corruption Research and Education Center, which is based at the National University of Kyiv Moa Academy. She's a key architect of Ukraine's whistleblower protection legislative reform program, founder of the Coalition 11, and chair of Ukraine's annual whistleblowing conference. Oksana has been in this space for a number of years. We've had connections for a number of years prior to, obviously, the war starting. There's a lot of discussion about whistleblower protection in Ukraine within the anti-corruption agenda. She has a much wider view of whistleblowing as a public interest element. But of course, all three speakers come from countries where there are very different challenges, very different issues, some very current and ongoing, some keep rising and going away again. So I really wanted to say this is practical, theoretical, on the ground expertise that we have before us today. So we're going to run this as a discussion. I'm going to ask questions to each of them, and we can discuss it and then move on to other questions. So to really start, I wanted to start with you, Oksana, and ask, what is the biggest challenge during, and I guess this is, obviously there is a war going on, so we're not going to not talk about that at all, but what is the biggest challenge in your country for whistleblowing? You can talk about it currently, right now, or overall, would you say?
Thank you, Anne. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So today, one of the biggest challenge for whistleblower protection in Ukraine is that our system is still very fragmented. After the Revolution of Dignity, actually, Ukraine discussed adopting a comprehensive whistleblower protection law through the draft law on protection for public interest disclosures. But despite very serious advocacy effort and public campaigns, the initiative was never adopted. And instead, Ukraine later developed a thematic framework focused on corruption whistleblowers. Currently, Ukraine has legislation focused mainly on people who report corruption, but we still don't have a comprehensive whistleblower protection law that would protect all whistleblowers in different sectors. You know, I would like to sharing just one slide to, if I will be succeed, just one moment, I will try to just show this. Yeah. So here it's like the short story how we try to fight with this challenge. We have just in 2011 one provision that some immunity for public interest disclosure. After that, 2014, some article on prevention of corruption law. So, but finally, even right now, here it's a QR code. You can see more about our research. Come back to other challenges. What we can say, the first challenge, we still don't have comprehensive law. And this is the biggest challenge for Ukrainian whistleblowers. Another challenge, it's actually implementation. On paper, the National Agency of Corruption Prevention has strong power to protect whistleblowers. But in practice, our research shows that institutional and professional capacity is still not strong enough to provide effective protection for whistleblowers, even who report corruption. We also don't see enough political focus on whistleblower protection as a real priority for NACP. So, and in fact, right now we have just a few cases where whistleblowers actually were protected by NACP, and it's actually took years. Another issue is confidentiality and anonymity. Many whistleblowers still don't have fully trust that existing system can protect their identity and protect them from retaliation. Right now, it's a big discussion about this portal for reporting for whistleblowers in Ukraine. And also, as the report shows, like in many other countries, Ukraine still lacks qualified, free legal and psychological support for whistleblowers. And from my point of view, it's a really big and serious challenge for whistleblowers in Ukraine. Because you just don't have access to support, And finally, Ukraine still lacks a strong whistleblower culture. I could not agree more with a report finding that there is a lack of lawyers and experts who understand the concept of whistleblower in Ukraine. We need more education, more public awareness, stronger civil society involvement, and more professionals who understand actually that whistleblowers are not like rats, but the people who help protect democracy, public integrity, and public trust. So that is the most serious challenge for whistleblowers in Ukraine today. Thank you.
Thank you. I kind of did, it would be great maybe if we could have access to that slide to sort of see how you had this law that was much broader and then it went narrow again. And there was an attempt to really undermine it just before the war started, or a couple of years, like maybe a year or so before the war started, where it was actually stopped by Zelensky at the time. There's pressure that he stopped a kind of what Tom Devine of the Government Accountability Project would call
Actually, I'm going to mention it in this our later discussion.
Fine. So moving on, Claire, what currently or overall, what would you say biggest challenges are in Colombia for whistleblowing?
Thank you very much, Anna and Juliet, for the invitation, and congratulations. This is a very good international report. Thank you very much. In Colombia, I identified two challenges. The first one is recognize whistleblowers as a social and vulnerable group. Indeed, there is confusion in Colombia between social leaders and whistleblowers, and the legal framework for protection covers social leaders but does not explicitly include those who report corruption. The second one is that we don't have official information or public information or data on whistleblowers in Colombia. We have data on murders, but we don't know whether these were motivated by a whistleblower report or by some other reason. So we lack of official and public information. And the third one is we have a robust whistleblower. We don't have a robust whistleblower protection law. The draft law, is currently being debated in the House of Representatives. It still needs to be debated in the Senate. We are optimistic. So I identified those three challenges. Sorry.
Great, thank you. And Miali in Madagascar. You've recently had a big upheaval in Madagascar as well, so I'm really interested in whether that's affected directly the whistleblowing issues.
My name is Mialisoa, Randriamampianina, which is a very common name linked in Madagascar. But we are Malagasy people. We don't have name, we have books. So, first of all, congratulations to Wayne for this, for all the works that have been done, and for this important report, which is extremely useful for civil society, for whistleblowers, citizens, journalists, as it helps make these issues more visible and better understood. For Madagascar, let's say, looking back over the past decade, I would say that one of the main, if it's not the first, obstacles to whistleblower protection has been the lack of political will. We faced resistance both at the government, at the executive level, and among influential members of parliament and the Senate, many of whom were not supportive of protecting whistleblowers or promoting whistleblowing mechanism. Most of them perceived whistleblowing as a threat rather than a tool for accountability and transparency, fearing that it could expose powerful actors, destabilize institutions, or be used for political or economical purposes. So this created a climate of where secrecy was often valued more than public interest and accountability. Over the past 3 years, we as civil society, we have worked tirelessly to push the bill forward. We don't have the law to protect the whistleblowers for this moment. So we push this bill forward and to foster open discussions with members of parliament and government representatives. However, for a long time, there was no real ownership or understanding of the concept and the mechanism needed to effectively protect whistleblowers. But over the last few months, if you followed the news in Madagascar, we have a major change in our government. We did have a coup, a military coup, so we now have a new government led by military. There are some very bad news, but some very good news also, because over the last 5 months, we have witnessed a major shift. The anti-corruption system has now decided to take the lead in advocating for whistleblower protection. So this marks a very important step forward. We now have a draft text and we are pushing for it to be adopted during the next parliamentary session. This is encouraging because for the first time we are seeing both political willingness and a concrete legal tool that could genuinely help protect whistleblowers in our country. However, in the case of Madagascar, and I believe it applies to many countries around the world, it's also essential to guarantee the right of access to public information. So in Madagascar, we currently have a draft law on access to information of public interest, but we are still waiting for our parliament to adopt it. CSO, citizen, journalists have all carried out strong advocacy efforts and support this law because it would represent a major step forward for transparency and accountability. Unfortunately, the bill has not yet been adopted by Parliament, so we had hoped that this step would be taken during the current parliamentary session last Monday, but the discussion was postponed. So therefore, we continue our advocacy effort to push for its adoption. In our national anti-corruption strategy, the law on whistleblowers and human rights defenders protection is closely linked to the law on access to public information. So we need both of those legal frameworks in order to strengthen our anti-corruption architecture and promote greater transparency and accountability. Whistleblowing mechanism, as you know, is their key component when talking about effective anti-corruption system. So that's what I can say about the challenges and obstacles for my country.
Well, I heard some hope and interesting developments. I do find, at least in the experience, because I've been in this field for far too long, that as long as the debate has been happening, then it often can happen quite fast. Something goes and then everybody's ready. But to keep that debate going when, sometimes it can be quite demoralizing is a tough call. And again, it's not obvious you see the impact, but when you do see the impact, it's quite astonishing sometimes. So moving on to next question, it's a little bit more focusing on the report now. You've had a chance to look at it. And I always find this sometimes with some of the research. It's like, well, it's so great to have it, but almost within 2 seconds, you're like, well, we kind of knew that, or something like that. But I hope you have still that sense of reading it for the first time and thinking, something struck you, either as really interesting or new, just stood out for you when you read it. Oksana, do you want to sort of say what that might be?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, really, the report like really do some like good focus on the challenges and the tendency. So, but one of the things that stood out to me most after reading this report is how deep and thoughtful it is, actually. It is not only a report about whistleblower protection, actually, like for me, how like, it is a broader reflection on the global situation on whistleblowers, civil society organizations, and the whistleblowing movement. The report honestly describe both like and some achievements, and serious challenge that we have. But at the same time, what I really like, it also offers ideas for solutions and stronger international cooperation. That is a really like. For me personally, the most valuable part was the section about the challenges faced by organizations working on whistleblower protection. The report clearly showed that many organizations struggle with unstable funding and limited resources. So, and that's I found very interesting because like we have the same in Ukraine, if we talk about support also wall protection. Because of this, they often cannot provide enough legal, psychological, or technical support for whistleblowers, and it becomes very difficult to build long-term expertise and sustainable teams. And it's really what I feel when we work with whistleblowers in Ukraine. And also, I found very important that the report highlights growing pressure and intimidation against civil society organizations, including SLAPs, political pressure, and attacks on freedom of expression. I mean, it's like, I believe it's a very important point. And finally, I think this report sent a crucial message to international donors and private foundations. Supporting whistleblower protection is not only about helping individual whistleblowers, it is about protecting transparency, accountability, and democratic resistance. And I think this report can help donors better understand why long support in this field is crucial important. So that is like key points that I found so interesting and very helpful and very practical from the report. I really I believe like you really done a great job, and I see how similar we are globally, and that is really, I like that you use this collective action. So we really need collective action. We really need movement. And I'm so happy that actually you focus on this. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Thank you. That's quite an interesting reflection. I'll turn to you, Claire and Miali. There may be similarities, but you may have picked up some other nuances, but also from what it means from your perspective when you read it, that kind of first glance of something, because I know sometimes there is just an instant something that hits you. Claire?
Thank you, Anna. I found two interesting elements in the report. The first element is the diversity of definitions. You told about that, Juliette, in your introduction, because we see that at a global level, the characteristics of whistleblowers and their work are fairly standard. But we see a lot of differences in the terminology. And I like the report's differentiated approach. I think it's very important to maintain this differentiated approach. And the second element is that, and I didn't know that, the report confirms that the first issue area of whistleblowers is corruption. And this is very important for the anti-corruption organizations to insist on it, to mention it, to demonstrate that a whistleblower is someone who reports corruption, who defends public interest. And I think that in our work, we always have to insist on it. Thank you.
Just trying to get in touch with Ed to see if he could put a link in the chat to download the report so people can start to have a look at that. We're sort of, this is a big teaser if some of you haven't seen it, but hopefully you'll want to download it. And it is now available online. So Ed, if I can ask you to put that in the chat. There's a form just because we'd really like to know who's interested in the issue. So we're not collecting it for any other reason. And you can now download the report. Miali, what for you really struck home?
I'd like to highlight 3 elements that particularly struck me while reading the report. First of all, I really appreciated the way the report begins. The opening sentence states, I'm reading, whistleblowers are the first and best defense against abuse of powers. They identify and reveal wrongdoing, etc., etc. For me, this perfectly captures the importance of whistleblowers. These opening lines clearly define both of the role of whistleblowers and the work that still needs to be done to protect them. I found it very powerful. The second point that I found very interesting was the discussion around the cultural and social obstacle to protecting whistleblowers, especially the stigma associated with whistleblowing. In many societies, and Madagascar is one of them, whistleblowers are still perceived as traitors, troublemakers, individuals acting against the institutions or communities, rather than people defending transparency, accountability, etc. So this is something that is not always openly discussed when talking about whistleblowers, even though there are many obstacles to whistleblowing. I think it's very important to highlight this factor because it helps explain why communities often do not protect whistleblowers, not necessarily out of a bad intent, but because there is still a limited understanding of what whistleblowing is and why speaking out matters. So this brings me to a third point, for a third interesting point for me in the report. The role of civil society in making the concept of whistleblowing more accessible and understandable. Does it make sense? Understandable? Yeah. To the public. The objective is to help people see that whistleblowing is not something external or new to our societies. It is, in fact, an essential part of the anti-corruption and human rights ecosystem. Protecting whistleblowers means protecting the community itself, making our institutions stronger, our society safer and more accountable. So I really appreciate that the reports present this issue so that people can understand that it is about us, about our community, about the way we protect the people that protect us against corruption.
Thank you so much. All of you did say very different things and really picked up different points of the report. It's wonderful. I hope that others who read the report will share with us their views too and come back to us, because I think this is, it's helpful as we're thinking as a community how we can not have the same narratives everywhere. You need to talk in your own languages. You need to talk it culturally in your own ways. People get there sort of following different routes, but I do think they get to a similar point. And so, how you see this report fitting into long-term discussions is really helpful for us as we're talking with each other. So that's wonderful. I was going to say, it struck me recently when we're talking about this public narrative, and I'd like to, come back and ask you as part of your reflection about this, because I've been very aware, for instance, watching the protests outside of the ICE removal centers or ICE headquarters in the US, and it seemed that some of them that I've seen online have been women out there, but blowing whistles, and that the whistleblowing is about sort of raising a noise for the community, not just stop one person. And also the whistles that were blown on the floor of the parliament during the raucous debates in Slovakia, where the government was trying to shut down the Whistleblower Protection Office and everybody started blowing whistles. So it's just an interesting thing of the public understanding. There are times everybody wants to be part of it, and times it's just one sole whistleblower, and you're sort of going, what's that about? And you can sort of physically understand that. The next question I wanted to ask all three of you was, what is important to you about being part of a wider global community? It's one that is still new. I think when it first started, was really trying to say you exist to each other, because people who do sort of do this work and cross borders, and that's what I was doing a lot of. I could see from my own experience that people were working hard in their national situations. There were some things that really linked them, but it's hard won, your expertise, and you're constantly at it, and it's a very intense process. So what is it about being part of a wider network that you feel is important, and one that might have some of this specialization, looking at whistleblowing sort of more specifically, or at least trying to fit it into narratives that everyone understands? Oksana, do you want to start?
Yes, please. Actually, if not international network, first of all, I would not be here because Tom Devine from Government Accountability Project and Seattle Dreyfus from Blueprint for Free Speech, actually, they helped me to become an expert. Tom Devine, literally, taught me, So, and it was like the first step. International movement, it's help people around the world to communicate, and people who have bigger, better expertise can help, who just start in their country to develop whistleblower protection, actually to understand what is this, how it should be. So, and it's the first things. Secondly, actually, it's very important, for me to be a part of, this is a wider community of whistleblower protection experts, as WIN means very important thing, you are not feel that you just belong to a small group of activists or academics. Networks like WIN help people feel that they are part of international community working of transparency, accountability, and protection people who speak up. Secondly, again, for me personally, it is also about professional support and solidarity. Solidarity is very important. I saw this is actually during advocacy work on whistleblower protection legislation in Ukraine. I mentioned that we had just limited protection, but if not WIN, if not Blueprint for Free Speech, if not Government Accountability Project, particularly Tom Devine, I believe we have, this is good protection for whistleblowers who report corruption, because actually support from WIN, from Government Accountability Project, from Blueprint for Free Speech. Because I remember, and maybe Anna, you remember, we asked a couple of times, really support, when even this protections that we, managed to do 2019, later tried to actually, our government tried to destroy it. And just because international support, because supporting letters, when Constitutional Court of Ukraine just said this part of this is actually protection, does not, don't meet with Constitution of Ukraine, that is not. And the Ukrainian parliament again, push this amendment to protect at least whistleblowers who report corruption. We actually convince our president to do a good job, because this is international support, this is international pressure. So it's I believe international, what we have right now in Ukraine, pretty good protection for whistleblowers who report corruption. That is because it's international support, international movement. And third is about sharing knowledge and raising awareness. Every year, ACREC organizes international conference on whistleblower, and experts from different countries share experience with Ukrainian, official journalists, civil society, and researchers. Again, we ask to be a part of our conference, and David Bannister and Yuan and Siu and Tom Diwan and other experts, and because we all like part of this international community. And this has really helped to improve understanding what is the concept whistleblower protection in Ukraine for officials, for legal community, because how I mentioned before, we still have a lack of this expertise. So you really help a lot to us. So, and I would like to finish with a quote for your report, because I really like it. Importantly, as the civil society continues to learn, critically analyze, and actively respond to challenges ahead, by collaborating across borders, we can embed the impact of whistleblower within a broader movement for democratic reform and resistance around the world. I really found this is very great phrase from report. It's very nice. So thank you. To be a part of movement means for me it's actually do the best to improve situation with whistleblower protection in Ukraine because it's international network. Thank you. Sorry for it takes so long time.
That's okay. Thank you. Claire?
Oksana said everything. I don't want to repeat, but I can identify the first one or the first challenge for WIN network is support the hard work of support to whistleblowing. I don't know what I mean. I think that the work with whistleblowers is sometimes very hard, and that's why we need solidarity and we need exchange. We need shared experiences. It is very, very important for me to share my experience with you because sometimes it was very difficult to give a solution to a whistleblower. So I think it is very important. The second thing is that WIN is working in a global level. And it's very important because after this work in a global level, we can, in our national situations, national context, implement laws, implement conventions. We need this work in a global level. And especially in Latin America, and this is my third thing, in Latin America, we don't have a lot of expertise about whistleblowers, and we need share knowledge. We need share experiences in our countries, and I think that the work of WIN helps us to have more bibliography, more references about the whistleblowers' activities. Thank you.
Great. Miali?
So Oksana and Laura and Claire has already. So what matters to me about being part of a broader community like WIN is that it reminds us that we're not working alone. Being part of a global network creates a sense of shared solidarity and responsibility, which is important, essential for sustaining the work over time. It's also, I think, a space of for collective learning, for exchanges with peers from different countries. We have already done that. We are able to share experiences, good practices, but also failures and our lessons learned. So this is extremely valuable because whistleblowers protections systems are still evolving, in many parts of the world. And just to underline what my colleagues have already said, this important aspect is the added legitimacy and strength that comes with being part of WIN as an international community, because at the national level we can advocate strongly, but our message often gain more weight when they are supported by wider global movement. And finally, I really appreciate the human dimension of the WIN, because we can hope for technical support, but also a form of professional and human solidarity. It helps to build resilience and reminds us that we are not, alone when facing all these different battles and context, etc. When trying to protect our whistleblowers.
Wow.
So
Well,
thank you.
thank you so much. I was going to ask for a final reflection, but I feel like you've touched on it, which was really sort of how it fit in with the wider democratic accountability, the wider work that you do. Because not all, I mean, I think Oksana's organization and her specialization has been in the anti-corruption space and whistleblowing maybe a little bit more. But, for transparency, in Madagascar and in Colombia, your organizations are doing a lot. And whistleblowing, again, it's separate, but it obviously seems to be connected. Would you sort of say that it's, yes, whistleblowers are separate, but you're doing it because it connects to all the other things you're trying to achieve? Because I think that keeps getting missed, I think, by those who might support more the work, because they focus on, which quite rightly, you need to focus on individual whistleblowers who are suffering, but the reason behind all of this and why they're trying to speak up is to make a difference, to stop the wrongdoing. And it fits in. Do you want to just a little reflection on any of that? I just open it up to anyone who wants to speak.
Yeah, if I can. I try
Yes,
to
of course,
be-
Oksana.
Actually, my reflection, while I represent right now the role of anti-corruption, actually, for me, whistleblower protection is broader. My background actually like a freedom of information, government accountability, transparency. And for me, it's even broader because like I got my PhD on constitutional law, and whistleblower protection, it's about to protect constitutional regime. It's like I agree, like you emphasize and report that it's actually whistleblower protection does not like only provide benefits for whistleblower, but the whole society. And for me, whistleblower is not only like anti-corruption issue. It's directly connected to the protection on the, how I mentioned, constitutional regime, the rule of law, transparency, and accountability. Because the idea of a constitutional state is based on limited state powers through the rule of law. Yeah, how we know. But it's a very big dilemma for whistleblowers. What should a person to do when they believe an order violates the constitutional principle or legal norms, when it's a part of the bureaucracy? Yeah, should I stay silent to protect like my career, or speak out and risk retaliation? And in fact, in reality, most people choose silence, and in Ukraine as well, unfortunately. And this is exactly why whistleblowers are so important, because they often not only people who reveal corruption. Yeah, like it's like my part of my organization, what we like try to fight with corruption, but it's also abuse of power and human rights violation. And before this problem becomes systematic, whistleblowers act as early warning mechanism for constitutional order and make real transparency and accountability possible. So for me, without real whistleblower protection, abuse of power remain hiding inside state institution. Accountability becomes weaker and constitutional order itself becomes vulnerable. In other words, if we would like to protect our constitutional regime, we need to protect whistleblowers.
That's like from,
for me.
Yeah, that's, you made the connection from the individual to the wider constitutional and what you want we're living through times where that's being directly attacked, and so whistleblowers are going to be protecting it at times. in a way almost on their own, and the systems themselves are being under attack. Juliette, we're come to the end of an hour. I don't see that there are any questions. Maybe we've just overwhelmed everybody with these thoughts, but do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share? And I know Liz Gardner is here, who's the vice chair of the board, and perhaps she could make a final comment. But Liz, sorry, Juliette, do you want to just say anything in the kind of terms of the report? You're muted.
I can just after Liz, if she wants
Okay,
to.
okay. Liz, if you'd like to say a few words, and then we'll let everyone get on with their day and thank them very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. And I'm Liz Gardner, and I am the Joint Chief Executive at Protect. So we're the UK's whistleblowing NGO. And I just want to say what a brilliant webinar this has been. Thank you so much to the 50 organisations who participated and produced the survey. Thank you very much, Juliette and Anna, for many months of work on what's turned out to be a really brilliant report. And thanks too to our contributing authors. And Miley, Claire and Oksana, what interesting contributions, and really explaining to us why WIN is so vital. And I think, for me, I think this idea that there is such a consistency around the world in the barriers that we're all facing and the work that we're trying to do to remove them. And huge comfort as well that we all share these same aims of enabling individual whistleblowers to stop harm, whether it's exposing corruption, protecting the public interest, or those broader issues that Oksana was touching on, even upholding democracy. Just final point from me, I really hope that the chronic underfunding of all of these whistleblowing organisations, including WIN, needs to change, because the speakers have been so eloquent on why we need WIN. Not just because it produces things like this wonderful report today, but also because it provides us a collaborative network, the shared expertise, and as Miley said, keeps us hopeful that we're not alone in these really difficult times, that working together, we're harnessing the power of the whistleblowers to bring about change. I think that's just so vital. And I really enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
So thank you all. Thank you all to the whistleblowers of the world who have inspired us and continue to inspire us, who walk out into a lot of risk at times where we would say, my goodness, people take risks. It matters to people that they do right by their communities. It matters to us that we stand by those people, and that we hope the communities will join us as well. And yeah, thank you so much. And Juliette, do you want to say a final word? And then you can say goodbye. I won't speak again. Thank you.
Well, I want to say also thanks to everybody, for the speakers and for all the respondents. It was really a really great work to do. And I think the idea at the beginning, and I think we want to develop that, but it was also to have a vision of the evolution of the organization in the time. I mean, to have this kind of study in 4 years, 5 years, and to see where we are, it would be really, really interesting also. And just to I think Oksana spoke about that. It's if we succeed in showing that it's not only individuals, but there's lots of people behind the individuals and the whistleblowers, I think it would be great. So thank you so much, and I hope it's going to participate to bring about change. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.